The rain had finally stopped, leaving behind damp streets that shimmered under the pale glow of streetlights. The air smelled faintly of wet asphalt and decaying leaves, a reminder that autumn was well underway. Maya tightened her scarf around her neck as she walked briskly down the sidewalk, her breath forming small clouds in the chilly evening air. It had been one of those days. Long meetings at work, endless emails piling up, and an overwhelming sense of dissatisfaction with life. She needed a break, even if it was just a quick escape from her cramped apartment. As she turned a corner, something unusual caught her eye, a faded sign hanging above a narrow doorway. Thrift and Treasures, it read in peeling cursive letters. The shop looked like it hadn't seen much foot traffic in years. Its windows were smudged with grime, and the display inside consisted of mismatched furniture and stacks of old books. Yet there was something oddly inviting about it, almost magnetic. Maybe it was the promise of forgotten stories hidden among the clutter, or perhaps it was simply the allure of stepping into a place untouched by time. Whatever it was, Maya felt compelled to push open the creaking door and step inside. The bell above the entrance jingled softly as she entered, announcing her arrival to no one in particular. The interior was dimly lit, with only a few flickering fluorescent bulbs casting uneven light across the room. Dust motes floated lazily through the air, catching the weak beams of light filtering through cracked window panes. Shelves lined every wall, sagging slightly under the weight of their contents. Porcelain figurines, vintage cameras, stacks of vinyl records, and rows upon rows of knickknacks whose origins were lost to time. In the center of the store stood several long tables covered in bins overflowing with miscellaneous items, old magazines, tangled jewelry, and toys worn smooth by countless hands. Maya wandered aimlessly, trailing her fingers along the edges of shelves as she moved deeper into the labyrinthine space. Her initial curiosity gave way to a strange sort of calm as she took in the eclectic mix of objects. Each item seemed to carry whispers of another life, another story. There was a chipped teacup painted with delicate blue flowers, likely once part of a cherished set. A rusted pocket watch lay open on a shelf, its hands frozen at 317. And then there were the toys. Plastic dinosaurs missing limbs, dolls with cracked faces, and stuffed animals whose fur had matted over decades of neglect. It was while sifting through one of these binds that Maya froze. Nestled among a pile of discarded playthings was a teddy bear so familiar that her heart skipped a beat. Its golden button eyes stared back at her, dulled by age but still unmistakable. One ear was slightly torn, and its left paw bore a faint stain from where she'd spilled grape juice on it as a child. But there was no mistaking it. It was her teddy bear, Mr. Snuggles, the companion who had been her constant source of comfort during some of the hardest years of her life. For a moment, Maya couldn't breathe. Memories came rushing back in a flood, vivid and unrelenting. She remembered clutching Mr. Snuggles tightly during thunderstorms, burying her face in his soft fur whenever her parents' arguments grew too loud. She recalled hiding him under her pillow when she was scared, whispering secrets into his stitched mouth as if he could understand. Most of all, she remembered the crushing sadness she felt when he disappeared. One day he was there, and the next he was gone without explanation. She'd searched everywhere, asked everyone, but no one had answers. Eventually, she convinced herself that she must have misplaced him during the chaos of moving houses. Over time, the ache of losing him faded, buried beneath layers of adulthood and responsibilities. But now, here he was, sitting in a dusty bin in a thrift store miles away from where she grew up. How? Why? Questions swirled in her mind as she reached out hesitantly, half expecting the bear to vanish like a mirage. When her fingers brushed against its fur, reality solidified. He was real, solid, here. Her hands trembled as she lifted him from the bin, cradling him close to her chest. For a moment, she felt like that little girl again, the one who believed wholeheartedly in magic and happy endings. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them away, unwilling to let anyone see her cry. Instead, she focused on examining the bear more closely, searching for any signs of damage beyond what she already knew. His fur was thinner than she remembered, patches of baldness revealing threadbare patches beneath. His nose, once embroidered in neat black stitches, was frayed at the edges. Still, despite his wear and tear, he was beautiful to her, a tangible piece of her past returned unexpectedly. And yet, something didn't feel quite right. As Maya held the bear, she noticed something unusual about its weight. It wasn't heavy exactly, but it definitely felt denser than she remembered. Frowning, she turned it over in her hands, inspecting it carefully. That's when she spotted it, a faint seam running along the backside of the bear, almost imperceptible unless you were looking closely. Someone had sewn it shut recently, judging by the fresh threads contrasting against the faded fabric. A shiver ran down her spine. Why would someone tamper with her childhood toy? Had it been used to hide something, or was this just a coincidence? A repair job done by whoever owned it last? Either way, the discovery unsettled her. She glanced around the store, suddenly hyper-aware of how empty it was. No other customers lingered among the aisles, and the elderly man behind the counter seemed engrossed in a crossword puzzle, oblivious to her presence. The quiet hum of the overhead lights seemed louder now, almost oppressive. Maya hesitated, torn between curiosity and caution. Part of her wanted to rip open the seam immediately, desperate to know what secrets the bear might hold. Another part, the rational adult part, warned her to leave well enough alone. After all, this was Mr. Snuggles, a symbol of innocence and comfort. What if opening it ruined whatever remained of his charm? What if she found something she wasn't prepared to handle? But the pull of curiosity was too strong. Squeezing her eyes shut for a brief second, she made her decision. Whatever was inside the bear, she needed to know. If nothing else, finding him again after all these years felt like fate, and she couldn't ignore the possibility that this discovery might lead her somewhere important. Clutching the bear tightly, Maya carried it to the counter. The shopkeeper barely glanced up as he rang her purchase, muttering a distracted, "That'll be $5," before handing her a faded receipt. Maya paid quickly, stuffing the change back into her wallet without counting it. Her mind was elsewhere, consumed by thoughts of what awaited her at home. Outside, the sky had darkened further, and the wind carried a bite that hinted at winter's approach. Maya pulled her coat tighter around herself as she hurried toward her car, the bear clutched protectively in her arms. Normally, she would have taken her time driving home, letting the city lights blur past her window as she decompressed from the day. Tonight, however, she drove faster than usual, eager to get back to the safety of her apartment. Once inside, she locked the door behind her and leaned against it, taking a deep breath. The bear sat on her kitchen table, bathed in the soft glow of the overhead light. Maya stared at it for a long moment, her pulse quickening with anticipation. Whatever secrets it held, they were hers to uncover now. With trembling hands, she retrieved a pair of scissors from a drawer and approached the bear cautiously, as though it might come alive at any moment. She hesitated again, staring at the neatly sewn seam. This was it, the point of no return. Taking a steadying breath, she slipped the tip of the scissors beneath the first stitch and began to cut. Thread by thread, the seam unraveled, revealing a hollow cavity within the bear's body. Maya's heart pounded in her chest as she reached inside, her fingers brushing against something soft yet firm. When she pulled it out, her breath caught in her throat. Folded neatly within the bear's belly was a single sheet of paper, yellowed with age and fragile to the touch. Carefully unfolding it, Maya squinted at the handwriting scrawled across the page. It was hers, but not the confident script of adulthood. These were the shaky, uneven letters of a child, written with painstaking care. The message was short, cryptic, and utterly baffling. "If you find this, remember the treehouse." Maya's stomach dropped. The treehouse. Of course she remembered it, the rickety structure perched high in the branches of the oak tree in her childhood backyard. It had been her sanctuary, a place where she and her best friend Ethan would spend hours playing make-believe and sharing secrets. But Ethan, he'd vanished one summer, disappearing without a trace. Everyone assumed he'd run away, but no one ever found him. Why would her younger self have written such a note? And why had she hidden it inside Mr. Snuggles? More importantly, what did it mean now? Questions swirled in her mind, each one more unsettling than the last. As Maya sat there, clutching the note and staring at the bear, she realized this was more than just a nostalgic rediscovery. This was the beginning of something bigger, something she couldn't yet fully comprehend. Maya sat frozen at her kitchen table, the note trembling slightly in her hands. Her mind raced as she tried to piece together the fragmented memories tied to the cryptic message. Remember the treehouse. Those 4 words carried an eerie weight, dredging up images of long summer afternoons spent climbing into the rickety wooden structure nestled high in the branches of the old oak tree. But alongside those innocent recollections came darker ones. The day Ethan disappeared, leaving behind only unanswered questions and a void that never fully healed. She glanced at Mr. Snuggles, now resting limply on the table beside her. His golden button eyes seemed to stare back at her, almost accusingly, as if daring her to uncover more. Her fingers itched to delve deeper, to pry open whatever secrets he still held. Slowly, hesitantly, she reached inside the bear's hollow cavity again. This time, her hand brushed against something cold and metallic. Pulling it out carefully, she revealed a small brass key attached to a faded blue ribbon. Its surface was tarnished, but the grooves were sharp enough to suggest it had been used recently, or perhaps crafted specifically for this purpose. Her pulse quickened. A key. What did it unlock? And why had it been hidden inside her childhood teddy bear? The implication sent a shiver down her spine. Was this some elaborate prank left behind by her younger self, or was there something far more sinister at play? To make matters worse, as she examined the key, another item slipped out from within the bear, a Polaroid photograph. Maya picked it up gingerly, holding it closer to the light. The image depicted two children standing near the base of an enormous oak tree. One of them was unmistakably her round face framed by messy pigtails, wearing overalls streaked with dirt. Beside her stood a boy with tousled brown hair and a gap-toothed grin. It was Ethan. A lump formed in her throat as she studied the photo. They looked so carefree, their arms linked as they posed proudly in front of the tree. Behind them, the treehouse loomed faintly in the background, its weathered planks barely visible through the dense foliage. She flipped the photo over, hoping for additional clues, but the back was blank except for a smudge of what looked like pencil graphite. Memories flooded back unbidden, each one sharper than the last. Ethan had been her best friend growing up, practically inseparable until the summer he vanished. Their bond had been forged in shared adventures, building forts, catching fireflies, and whispering secrets late into the night. He'd always been the brave one, encouraging her to climb higher, explore farther, dream bigger. Without him, her world had felt smaller, quieter, emptier. But his absence wasn't the only thing haunting her thoughts. Something about the photo didn't sit right. Why had it been stashed inside the bear alongside the note and the key? And why did the bear feel heavier than she remembered, even after removing these items? As much as she wanted to believe this was simply a nostalgic scavenger hunt orchestrated by her younger self, the nagging sense of unease refused to dissipate. The rain outside had resumed, tapping rhythmically against her apartment window. Maya leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples as fatigue began to creep in. Yet her mind wouldn't let her rest. Every detail demanded scrutiny, every question begged for answers. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something crucial, some thread connecting all these disparate elements. Deciding she needed fresh air to clear her head, Maya grabbed her coat and stepped onto the balcony overlooking the city. Below, cars splashed through puddles, their headlights casting rippling reflections on the wet pavement. The cool breeze helped steady her racing thoughts, but it also brought clarity. Whatever lay ahead, she knew she couldn't ignore it. Whether driven by curiosity, nostalgia, or a deeper need for closure, she had to follow the trail laid out before her. Returning indoors, she spread the items across her dining table once more. The note, the key, the photograph, and Mr. Snuggles himself, whose presence seemed both comforting and ominous. Her gaze lingered on the key. It was too large to fit any ordinary lockbox or diary. It must belong to something significant. But what? Her first instinct was to revisit her childhood home. Though she hadn't set foot there in years, the thought of returning filled her with equal parts dread and determination. Memories of that house were bittersweet, intertwined with happier times and painful goodbyes. Still, if there were answers to be found, they likely resided there. After pacing her apartment for several minutes debating logistics, Maya finally resolved to visit the neighborhood the next morning. For now, exhaustion claimed her, and she tucked the items safely into a drawer before collapsing into bed. Sleep eluded her for hours, however, as fragments of dreams mingled with waking thoughts. In her mind's eye, she saw herself climbing the ladder to the treehouse, reaching for something just out of sight. Each step creaked ominously beneath her weight, and when she finally opened the hatch, darkness swallowed her whole. The following day dawned gray and dreary, mirroring Maya's mood as she navigated the familiar streets leading to her childhood home. The drive took longer than expected due to traffic, giving her ample time to second-guess her decision. By the time she pulled up to the curb, her nerves were frayed, and her palms slick with sweat. The house looked different, not drastically so, but enough to jar her senses. Fresh paint coated the exterior, and flower boxes adorned the windowsills where none had existed before. A swing set stood in the backyard, replacing the remnants of the old jungle gym she vaguely remembered. Strangers lived here now, their lives unfolding within walls that once echoed with her laughter and tears. Feeling like an intruder, Maya hesitated before stepping out of her car. She walked slowly around the perimeter, avoiding curious glances from neighbors who might recognize her. When she reached the backyard, she paused, staring up at the towering oak tree. Time had not been kind to it. Its bark was rougher, its branches sparser, yet it remained steadfast, a silent witness to decades of change. Gathering her courage, Maya approached the base of the tree. The ladder leading to the treehouse still clung precariously to the trunk, though several rungs appeared loose. She tested her weight cautiously, wincing as the wood groaned underfoot. Climbing higher felt surreal, like stepping backward through time. With each rung, the sounds of modern life faded, replaced by echoes of her past. Reaching the top, she hoisted herself through the hatch, brushing away cobwebs that clung stubbornly to her sleeves. Inside, the treehouse was exactly as she remembered it, but smaller somehow, diminished by adulthood. Dust covered everything, muting the vibrant colors of the makeshift furniture they'd built together. A few stray leaves littered the floorboards, carried in by wind and forgotten seasons. Her heart pounded as she scanned the space, searching for anything unusual. At first glance, nothing seemed amiss. Then, kneeling near the corner, she noticed a section of the floorboards that appeared slightly raised. Pressing down gently, she heard a faint click. Heart leaping into her throat, she pried the board loose with trembling fingers. Beneath it lay a small wooden box, its surface scratched and worn, but otherwise intact. The brass key fit perfectly into the lock, turning smoothly despite years of disuse. As the lid creaked open, Maya's breath caught in her chest. Inside was another note, written in her own childish handwriting. "You weren't supposed to forget me." Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes as she read the words over and over. Forget who? Ethan. Herself? Someone else entirely? Alongside the note was a silver bracelet engraved with initials she didn't recognize. E&M beneath that lay a folded newspaper clipping dated nearly 25 years ago. The headline screamed silently from the yellowed page. Local boy missing after family dispute. Maya's hands trembled violently as she unfolded the article. The accompanying photo showed Ethan smiling brightly, his arm slung casually over her shoulder. The caption identified him as Ethan Miller, age 9, last seen playing near his family's home on the outskirts of town. Authorities suspected he might have run away following a heated argument between his parents, but no concrete evidence supported this theory. Despite extensive searches, neither Ethan nor any trace of him had ever been found. The revelation hit Maya like a freight train. All these years, she'd assumed Ethan had simply moved away or chosen to sever ties. She convinced herself that his disappearance was unrelated to her, that she hadn't failed him somehow. But now, faced with undeniable proof of his fate, or lack thereof, she felt the full weight of her guilt and grief crash over her. Sitting cross-legged among the dusty remnants of their childhood hideout, Maya allowed herself to cry for the first time in decades. Tears streamed down her cheeks unchecked as sobs racked her body. She mourned not only the loss of her friend, but also the innocence she'd buried along with him. Growing up meant letting go of certain things, she realized bitterly. Sometimes it meant forgetting altogether. When the storm of emotions subsided, Maya wiped her face with shaking hands and took stock of her surroundings. The box contained no further clues, leaving her with more questions than answers. Who had placed these items inside Mr. Snuggles? Why had they entrusted her with such a heavy burden? And most importantly, what was she supposed to do with it all now? As she descended the ladder, clutching the box tightly to her chest, Maya made a silent vow. She would honor Ethan's memory by seeking the truth, no matter how painful or elusive it proved to be. For too long, she'd allowed herself to drift aimlessly through life, disconnected from her roots. Now she understood that connection wasn't just about people. It was about stories, legacies, and unresolved mysteries waiting to be unraveled. Back in her car, she stared at the house one final time before driving away. Rain began to fall again, washing away the dust and grime of years gone by. Maya gripped the steering wheel firmly, resolve hardening within her. This journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, she felt truly alive. The rain had stopped by the time Maya returned home, leaving behind damp streets that shimmered under the pale glow of streetlights. Her apartment felt both familiar and foreign now, its cozy corners unable to contain the storm of emotions brewing within her. She placed the wooden box carefully on her dining table, its contents spread out before her like pieces of a puzzle waiting to be assembled. The newspaper clipping lay at the center, Ethan's smiling face staring up at her. A reminder of everything she'd lost and everything she still didn't understand. Maya sat down heavily, her mind racing with questions. Who had left these items in Mr. Snuggles? Why had they chosen her to safeguard them? And what did the initials EM on the bracelet signify? Were they connected to Ethan Miller, or did they belong to someone else entirely? Each unanswered question gnawed at her, fueling a growing determination to uncover the truth. Her first instinct was to revisit old memories, to dig through the fragments of her childhood in search of overlooked details. She pulled out her laptop and began typing keywords into search engines. Ethan Miller missing case, treehouse secrets, and even Mr. Snuggles. Hours passed as she sifted through articles, forum posts, and archived news reports, but nothing new emerged. It seemed the world had largely forgotten about Ethan after the initial flurry of attention faded. Yet Maya couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to his story, that someone somewhere knew something vital. Frustrated but undeterred, she decided to take a different approach. If online searches weren't yielding results, perhaps talking to people who had known Ethan might provide some clarity. She grabbed her phone and scrolled through her contacts list, searching for anyone from her hometown who might still remember those days. Most of her childhood friends had drifted away over the years, their lives taking them in different directions. But one name stood out, Mrs. Harper, her third-grade teacher. Mrs. Harper had always been kind and observant, often going out of her way to check on students struggling with personal issues. Maya vaguely recalled confiding in her about Ethan's disappearance, though she couldn't remember exactly what she'd said. Taking a deep breath, she dialed the number she found online, hoping against hope that Mrs. Harper would answer. To her relief, the call connected after just a few rings. A warm voice greeted her on the other end. "Hello, Mrs. Harper," Maya asked tentatively. "This is Maya Patel. I was in your class back in, well, it must have been 1998. There was a brief pause, followed by a delighted gasp. "Maya, of course I remember you. How are you doing, dear?" "I'm okay," Maya replied, unsure how much to reveal. "I actually wanted to talk to you about something important. Do you have a moment?" "Of course. What's on your mind?" Maya hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "It's about Ethan Miller. I've recently discovered some things related to his disappearance, and I thought maybe you could help me fill in some gaps." The warmth in Mrs. Harper's voice dimmed slightly. "Oh, Ethan," she murmured. "Such a bright boy. It broke my heart when he went missing. Have you found something new?" "I'm not sure yet," Maya admitted, "but I think there might be more to his story than we realized. Did he ever mention anything unusual to you? Anything that stood out?" Mrs. Harper sighed thoughtfully. "He was a quiet child, very introspective. He used to write little stories during free time, fantastical tales about adventures in faraway lands. Sometimes he'd share bits of them with me, but he was always careful not to say too much. Looking back, I wonder if he was trying to tell us something without making it obvious." Maya's pulse quickened. "Do you still have any of those stories?" "I'm afraid not," Mrs. Harper replied regretfully. "But I do remember one detail that stuck with me. In one of his stories, he wrote about a secret place where only special people could go, a place filled with treasures and guarded by clues. At the time, I thought it was just his imagination running wild. Now, hearing this, I can't help but wonder." Maya thanked Mrs. Harper profusely, promising to keep her updated on any developments. As she hung up the phone, her mind raced with possibilities. Could Ethan's fictional tales have been more than mere flights of fancy? Had he been leaving breadcrumbs all along, hoping someone would follow them someday? Determined to explore this angle further, Maya spent the next several days revisiting places tied to her childhood memories. She drove to the park where she and Ethan used to play tag, the library where they'd hide among towering shelves of books, and the ice cream shop where they'd split sundaes on hot summer afternoons. Everywhere she went, she kept an eye out for anything that might jog her memory. A stray object, a familiar scent, a fleeting glimpse of something significant. Her efforts paid off unexpectedly during a visit to the local community center. While wandering through the building's aging hallways, she stumbled upon a corkboard covered in flyers and announcements. Among them was a faded poster advertising a storytelling event hosted decades ago. The title caught her eye: Secrets of the Treehouse, Tales from Beyond. Beneath it was a grainy photo of two children standing near an oak tree, one unmistakably Ethan, the other herself. Heart-pounding, Maya snapped a picture of the poster with her phone and approached the reception desk. "Excuse me," she said to the elderly woman seated there. Do you know anything about this event? It looks like it happened a long time ago. The woman adjusted her glasses and squinted at the image on Maya's screen. Ah, yes, she said slowly. That was part of our annual kids program. Children were encouraged to create stories based on their favorite hiding spots around town. Your friend Ethan, he was quite the storyteller, wasn't he? Yes, he was, Maya agreed, trying to mask her excitement. Do you happen to have any records of his story? Or maybe someone who attended the event? The woman frowned apologetically. I'm sorry, dear. We don't keep archives that far back. But she hesitated, then added, you might try reaching out to Mr. Grayson. He ran the program for years and retired not too long ago. Lives just outside town, I believe. Grateful for the lead, Maya jotted down Mr. Grayson's address and headed straight for his house. The drive took her through winding country roads lined with tall trees whose branches formed a canopy overhead. When she arrived, she found a modest cabin nestled amidst wildflowers and overgrown shrubs. Knocking on the door, she braced herself for disappointment. But instead, she was greeted by a cheerful older man with twinkling eyes and a ready smile. Maya Patel, is it? Mr. Grayson asked after introductions. Come in, come in. What brings you here? Over cups of steaming tea, Maya explained her quest, showing him the newspaper clipping, the bracelet, and the cryptic notes she'd uncovered. Mr. Grayson listened intently, nodding occasionally as if piecing together fragments of a long-forgotten melody. When she finished speaking, he leaned back in his chair, stroking his chin thoughtfully. Ethan was a remarkable boy, he said finally. His story at the event, it captivated everyone. He spoke of a magical treehouse that held secrets meant only for those brave enough to seek them. He even hinted at a treasure hidden within, protected by riddles and keys. A treasure? Maya echoed, incredulous. He never specified what it was, Mr. Grayson clarified. But he made it sound important, as if finding it could change lives. Many assumed it was just part of his creative flair, but knowing what you've shared today, his voice trailed off meaningfully. Maya left Mr. Grayson's house with renewed purpose. If Ethan had indeed created a treasure hunt of sorts, then the key she found in Mr. Snuggles must be part of it. But where did it lead? And what awaited her at the end of the trail? Back at her apartment, Maya pored over every clue she'd gathered so far. The note instructing her to remember the treehouse pointed clearly to the structure in her childhood backyard. Yet she'd already searched it thoroughly, or so she thought. Perhaps she'd missed something subtle, something only visible to someone privy to Ethan's inner world. With this in mind, she returned to the treehouse the following morning, armed with fresh eyes and heightened awareness. This time she examined every inch of the space, paying close attention to details she'd previously overlooked. Her gaze landed on a series of scratches etched into one of the wooden beams near the entrance. They looked random at first glance, but upon closer inspection, she realized they formed letters. Thereismord. There is more, she whispered aloud, her heart skipping a beat. More what? More clues. More secrets. More answers. Encouraged by the discovery, Maya continued her meticulous search. Eventually, her fingers brushed against a loose nail embedded in the floorboards near the corner where she found the box. Prying it free revealed a narrow slit beneath, barely wide enough to slip a piece of paper through. Inside, she discovered another folded note, this one bearing a single sentence. Look where shadows fall longest. Puzzled but intrigued, Maya climbed back down the ladder and circled the base of the tree, studying the ground intently. Late afternoon sunlight filtered through the branches, casting elongated shadows across the earth. One shadow in particular caught her eye. It stretched unnaturally long, originating from a jagged rock protruding slightly above the soil. Kneeling beside the rock, she began digging with her hands, scraping away dirt until her fingers struck something hard. Clearing away the debris revealed a small metal lockbox half buried in the ground. Her hands trembled as she inserted the brass key and turned it. The lid sprang open to reveal yet another Polaroid photograph, and this one sent chills down her spine. In the picture, Ethan stood alone in front of the treehouse, holding up a sign that read, "Keep going. Don't stop until you find me." Tears welled in Maya's eyes as she clutched the photo tightly. For years, she believed Ethan had simply vanished, leaving her behind. Now faced with undeniable proof that he'd been trying to communicate with her all along, she felt a surge of guilt and grief unlike anything she'd experienced before. But alongside the sorrow came resolve. Ethan hadn't disappeared without a trace. He'd left a trail, trusting her to follow it. Whatever lay ahead, she vowed to see it through, not just for him, but for herself, because in uncovering his story, she was beginning to rediscover her own. As dusk settled over the neighborhood, Maya packed up the new clues and headed home, her mind buzzing with possibilities. The path ahead remained uncertain, fraught with challenges and unknowns. But for the first time in years, she felt truly alive, driven by purpose, fueled by hope, and guided by the unwavering belief that secrets, no matter how deeply buried, always yearn to be told.